everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's yet another breaking news podcast about a Buckeye going in the transfer portal. And after trying to do one of these on my own, Tony, I have never in my life been happier to see you.
Good to see me as well. Yes, the news breaking that Mitchell Melton is headed to the transfer portal after the season. A fifth-year senior, was a 2020 signee guy who has played quite a bit this year and has been one of the 5 defensive ends used in a kind of a shallow rotation at times. So a veteran presence for Ohio State, a guy that, I don't know. We always talk about the blueprint for a guy that's going to hit the portal, and he stayed this long. And so this is kind of a bit of a surprise when you consider who's leaving and who's coming back. So I think there's an opportunity to play at Ohio State quite a bit next year. So this one to me, is a little bit surprising.
It is a little bit surprising because he seems like he's carved out a nice little niche for himself on this year's team where he for years, I feel like we need to start this conversation with, if not for injuries, Mitchell Melton might have had a very different career at Ohio State. Because he was, during the spring that Jim Knowles got to Ohio State in 2022, he looked for all the world like he was going to be one of the guys that really fit the mold for what Knowles was looking for out of that jack position, sort of that edge rusher, move around, athletic, speed guy off the edge, and then suffered a non-contact injury during the spring game that year, went down with a knee injury and missed the season. And you felt bad for him. He'd missed the 2021 season, then missed the 2022 season, and really played kind of sparingly last year. And this year finally felt like, okay, he's found his role. He, 12 tackles, 4 tackles for loss this year, a couple of sacks, but he was consistently on the field. You saw him on the field every game. And there were certain games, he played 20 snaps against Tennessee in the CFP, 9 against Oregon, 9 against Indiana. But there were situations where you would see him brought in. It was like, okay, it's third and long. Yeah, you see Mitchell Melton on the field. He was kind of in that rush package. And he sort of carved out a nice role for himself. And with JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer also headed to the NFL after the season, you figure there might be a bigger role there for him next year. I wonder, you don't want to speculate too much, but there are other guys who we've talked about being in that role, CJ Hicks potentially moving down to more of an edge guy. So maybe there's going to be more competition for those snaps next year than we're thinking about right now. But, Mitchell Melton is not, he's not the guy who was just buried on the depth chart. He's someone who had sort of fought through all that, fought through the injuries, fought through the depth chart, and had earned a role on this team and was, meaningfully contributing in the Rose Bowl, meaningfully contributing in the first round of the college football playoff. So, yeah, a little bit surprising to see this, but he's a Maryland guy, so maybe you're gonna he goes somewhere closer to home and can be a clear-cut starter next year. Maybe that's the move.
It's certainly been an unusual path for Mitchell Melton. So he debuted as a Buckeye in the 2020 season opener on October 24th. October 24th. That was the only game he played in. And then he did not play again until the season opener of 2023. He missed entire seasons of 21 and 22. And they even held him out of the spring of 2023 just to make sure that he's going to be able to go and be ready. And the coaches have always been spoken very highly of him. And you see him out there when he's playing. There's times where he's the quickest guy out there, and he has a ton of explosion and so much experience now, just in terms of maturity. And so it will be interesting to see where he ends up, because it feels like he could go in and be a 40, 50 snap a game guy somewhere, probably not at Ohio State based on Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson possibly both being back and rotating in there now. Where he goes, you mentioned being from Maryland. We know Mike Loxley does a pretty good job of controlling the DMV area, but he'll have plenty of options on where to go. So again, like I said, a little bit of a surprise for me, especially considering how thin they kind of are at defensive end right now. And when I say right now for 2025, because they are thin and they can't really afford to lose the veterans that they thought could come back. And so this would be, at least in terms of a sixth year, I don't even know. There's probably thoughts that he can get 2 more years based on his number of injuries if they can get that medical exemption. So he might have some time to be able to do that. But then when you look at what is coming back for Ohio State and how they're going to operate, you need to see Joshua Mickens step up as a redshirt sophomore next year. Where is Dominic Kirks? Has he grown into a 3-tech at this point? Is he still defensive end? What are they going to do? Are they going to bring in the Jack? Are they going to make that CJ Hicks? So there are still some questions to be answered. But overall, like, they need to figure out this defensive end situation. And if you're losing guys to the portal, you might need to go to the portal to thicken the room overall.
Yeah, I mean, and they have brought in Logan George out of Idaho State, so that's one additional body that you can add to the mix. And they've brought in, this is a deep defensive line class that they brought in this recruiting class. I think they've got 5 or 6 guys, including like maybe 3 edge players that they're bringing in. So, you've got a lot of true freshmen coming in. So just in terms of pure numbers, they'll be fine next year. But I think you had sort of figured, okay, well, you'll have Edric Houston as a second-year guy. Well, now Edric Houston's kind of kicked inside from edge at 3-tech. So now he's not necessarily in that mix anymore. The sort of $64,000 question is, so what kind of defensive front are they running next year? Because that's kind of an interesting, that's not necessarily as straightforward a question as it has been for most of the last 10 years. It's for most of the last 10 years, it's been, well, of course, they're going to be playing 4 down and they're going to, they're going to be asking these guys to, do all the same usual stuff they've always done under Larry Johnson. And then middle of this year, that answer got a little more gray. You're starting to work in the shades of gray there on the defensive line. And we saw some 3-man fronts. We've seen all sorts of different mix and match. And so, they've introduced some different pieces to the defensive line in terms of different body types they've brought in. And then, if you're going to take a CJ Hicks and move him down closer to the line of scrimmage, that's another kind of different body type. That maybe makes me think, well, maybe they have enough defensive end types for what they're trying to do, or maybe they don't, and it all kind of depends.
Well, and I also wonder if this is a Larry Johnson situation, which, we don't need to speculate on that right now, but he's only going to stay at Ohio State so long. And so I'm not saying that this is it for him, but, that would be one reason why you might see a defensive end leave kind of out of the blue. You couldn't blame him for that, but again, that's just, throwing speculation out there, very irresponsibly, I might add. But, yeah, so there you go. Mitchell Melton off to the portal after the season, and will go and start somewhere and probably be pretty productive because he does have a ton of skill and a ton of ability, and I think he's probably just itching to show it, and he'll get an opportunity to do that somewhere else. So there you go. If you want to hit the thumbs up before you go on this YouTube, if you're watching it on YouTube, we would appreciate it. Hit the bell to be notified, and of course, sign up for the channel if you've not yet done so, and also sign up for us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member, $4.99 first month. You can check us out there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus, where, well, we're also talking about the transfer portal. It's not just Cotton Bowl right now. It's transfer portal. It's recruiting, and it's everything in between. So there you go. Find us there, and we would appreciate seeing you. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.